your certification. Well, the Indiana Soybean Council and the Corn Marketing Council, through a lot of your checkoff dollars, have agreed to support that. So your class is definitely free today. So we have a little 2-minute video that we need to watch just to make sure that we thank them for their coverage. So it's the one at the top. Thank you.
Farming is all about connections. Your connection to the land, to your crop, your connection to your family, to your community, and to the domestic and international markets bringing value back to your farm. One of the most important connections for an Indiana corn and soybean farmer is to other Indiana farmers through the Indiana Corn Marketing Council and the Indiana Soybean Alliance. Being in the heart of America's heartland, ICMC and ISA work hard on your behalf to connect more of the world with more of our farmers, because the world always needs more corn and soybeans, and ours are exceptional. Through our checkoff programs, you have a collaborative voice in the investments we make to enhance the value of your crop, while having the confidence that our combined efforts have your farm and all Indiana farmers in mind, and better prepared to take advantage of the growth in demand for your corn and soybeans. These investments include international and domestic market development and working with partners to accelerate demand for your crops in all forms, maintaining your farm's economic, environmental, and social sustainability through research, consumer outreach, and on farm conservation programs, creating new demand for corn and soybeans into new industrial or food products, and finally, providing resources and programs you can use on your farm. Connect with us today and learn more about your checkoff programs and the continued relationships Indiana farmers are making across the world, in our state, and in your communities.
All right, if you want to get my talk up there, young fella. So I hope you, at least I do, I appreciate, because you think of the amount of money that they have put into this corn and soy to educate as part of the education. I hope that's a good to you that have to pay those things, that it's a good value, that you're getting something directly back in your pocket. So we do appreciate them doing that. All right, so here we go. So first of all, Amy, thank you. We got 2 publications where they're going to be handing them out so that you have something if this strikes of interest to you. Does water influence your chemicals? Do they? Most of you agree with that? I'm looking at shaking heads. So gentlemen in the blue back here, what's your water pH? Well, yeah, out of the well. What is it? 7.9. Horrible water. I mean, you can tell because that water will eat your hair off your head. I'm telling you, I could tell what your water was already. What's your hardness? Do you have a water softener? Hard water. Without it being fixed, horrible water. What we're going to do is talk about hardness, pH, and adjuvants. How to clean up the water. This is a topic that's 50, 60 years old. There's nothing new. But nobody wants to seem to make the effort. But I'm telling you, if you're looking to improve performance of your product, sir, it's extremely important. And you're saying, Fred, I drink it, I bathe in it, I cook in it. Most of the water that you have out of the wells and out of the cities are horrible water for chemicals. So, you got enough there. Hopefully we have a few more than what I thought was going to be here, which is good. And by the way, how many needed one more before their license expired? Is anybody in the room? Oh, there's a bunch of you don't want to raise your hands. So Amy and Ty, thank you for putting this on so that these men and women don't have to retest. I helped this boy here pass the test, and I can tell you it was touch and go there for a while. Daniel. All right. So, all this equipment, all these $800,000, I don't know what these cost, I didn't ask Ty, he's not here to sell them, $800,000 pieces of equipment. Could your grandpa kill weeds? And his was what? A pull behind. Yeah, and it worked, didn't it? It's everything that comes out of those nozzles is what counts. The rest of it makes me more efficient, proficient, and everything else. Hey, Ty, do these come with a cup holder? Yes. Is that an extra fee? Standard. Oh, standard. Oh, good. Because some of them you have to pay another. It's $800,000 for the sprayer, $50,000 for a drink cup. So that's a positive thing to your Ty. It's standard. All right. So everything that comes out of this sprayer, sir, that's what's working, right? That is what is coming out. Now, there's a lot of stuff that happens here, folks, and we focus on this all the time. The right product. You store it correctly. In my world, we just did a talk last night. I'm telling you, you better count on these products being in storage for 3 years, no more. So we talk about rotating your chemicals, getting these chemicals out, measured correctly. You're going to be the boss of this outfit. Once Grandpa moves and your daddy leaves, what's the difference in a liquid ounce and a dry ounce? Or is there a difference? Oh, this ain't hard. Okay. What's the difference in a liquid ounce and a dry ounce? These are all young people don't know this. Okay, if you're an IU graduate, yes, one's wet and one's dry. I don't think I would ask you that. What's the difference? Folks, if we can't get that one right, the rest of this crap don't make a difference. What's the difference? Huh? So a liquid is a measure of volume. That bottle has got so many ounces, and that's why we have liquid measuring cups. So what's dry ounces? Weight. When you folks buy a bag of chips, I can read your lips or your mind. You open the chips and what do you say? It's half full. It's all air. No, they're selling it to you by weight. You're looking at it by volume. The bottom line is you don't measure dry products in liquid measuring cups. And are they compatible? And then you know that pretty quickly. When chemicals aren't compatible, what happens? They turn to snot. And then somebody's got to clean that garbage, right? And then what we're going to focus on is on the adjuvants and water quality as part of that process. And then we have now started doing one on nozzles. We've got a new publication. But it's the blue that we're going to focus in on. And here we go. Is there a science behind the adjuvants? These are things that we add to water to make them work better. And you're going to see why. Do they work? And are they worth the money? And that's what we're going to talk about. So, you mix in water, right, ma'am? It's all water. Is there anything special about water that could influence what we do? What would it be? pH is one, and hardness. All right? So this water droplet is not pure. Ty, it was kind of funny. I hadn't heard somebody talk about that. You said that in this water in the kitchen, that we've got some here, you actually added minerals back into it after you cleaned it up with your system, right? Yeah. Because the minerals is what gives it taste. Yes, it's a certain taste to it. The rest of this crap tastes like crap. There's no taste to it. But people, they love that water. Water's not pure. It's got minerals in it. And all of you that have got water tanks at home, water conditioners, you put salt in it to fix it. Because what happens if your water's too hard? What's the outcomes to your dishes? Stain, scum, the clothes don't work. Folks, water influences everything we have, including our chemicals. And water is a pretty complex molecule. So if you look on the very top, you learn this in grade school, water is H2O. And what do you remember, sir, about magnets? What attracts one to the other? Huh? Opposites. Are you married?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so that's how it worked. Opposites attract. And somehow something happens, right? And that charge is just... Been married 3 times. I know these things. So, Ryan, you got to work at it, buddy. You got to work at it. So, it has a charge. Water loves itself. So, Ryan, if a water molecule, I'm going to show you that, has got a minus, that minus hooks to another water molecule on the white. And the white hooks to, it forms a clump. So, if I could get you to play that one right there on the bottom.
And I'm Steve.
And this is a piece of PVC pipe.
And this is a plastic cup that has a hole drilled into the bottom of it. So when I fill it with water, it leaks out of the bottom.
If I charge the pipe and then bring it close to the stream of water, the water is attracted to it. That's because water molecules are polar molecules.
Doesn't make a difference what she says, got a charge. Now, if I did that on my head, what would happen? Boy, that ain't funny. You couldn't answer the question here a second ago. Now, on you, someday, you got a lot of hair right now, boy, but someday you may not. Where's Grandpa? Is he still here? No, he's already said he don't need the education anymore, right? Grandpa's done gone. All right. So it's got a charge. Go ahead. Oh, I got the clicker here. I'm sorry. Now, this is important. If you think about it, look at every single drop coming in. What shape is it, David? You can't miss this, huh? It's circular, it's round. And notice that every drop is round. This is just plain old water. Millions of drops being shot out. And let's see if, yeah. Now watch it when it hits. The water is going to break, and it's going to separate. Is that what you want on your leaf? Sir, is that what you want? Now, water loves itself, and it hates the world. So, Michael, or Mike, sometimes some of these chemistries want you to do what? Add something to the water to make it wetter, to make it spread. You with me? Sometimes. But I can't, this is the way it naturally is. Now, every herbicide that you apply has got to get to the leaf surface and penetrate somewhat. What you're seeing here is a water drop with the chemistry in it. It's stuck in the waxy hairs. It's not going in the plant, it's evaporating. So if everything has got to get to the leaf, what's my control on this hairy weed? Very little. Did y'all see that? Water and these waxy things just don't like each other. Sometimes I have to fix that. We're going to fix it here as we go. Young man here, water. What's the surface of a leaf? And I don't need anything fancy. What is that leaf surface? Yeah, go ahead. I said young, but yeah, that'll work. Go ahead. Yeah, you're good enough. Go ahead. What's the surface of a leaf? It's wax. And the wax is helped to protect the plant. Does water and oil ever mix? Does it? No, the answer is no. So if you want to mix it, you got to add something to it to help it work. And so what you're seeing here is a drop of water evaporating on the leaf surface. It's not penetrating, and if you notice the little speckles on it right there, that's the chemistry that's left on the surface of the plant. Folks, it's surprising that anything works. And then we have things like pH on your left and hardness on your right is in the water that influences.
Taking a look at the water, you know.
Oh. Let's go back one here. We'll try it again. I'm trying to figure out where the. Is there a light on? Is there the bottom?
Taking a look
The center?
at the water, you notice water quality. I mean, as we look at these, which of those is hard? This isn't glyphosate, but it mimics glyphosate in a hard water environment. And we'll put a little bit in here.
So that's hard water, calcium and magnesium.
We'll put the same amount relative in here.
I'm going to call that clean water, no calcium, magnesium.
Those two spray solutions solubilize that material.
This is like Roundup in hard water.
You'll be able to discover pretty quickly which of these is having a reaction. The glyphosate has reacted with the calcium that we artificially hardened this water with, and now that's a completely different, larger, molecule. For every molecule of calcium, it's tied up 2 molecules of glyphosate. That's hard water antagonism. So the glyphosate is completely available here to work at the plant surface, and when this application happens, 100% of the glyphosate is going to be out there working to impact weed control. Here, because you've had a reaction, a percentage of that glyphosate is tied up with the calcium, put the same amount of material in, and yet you've got much less of the same molecule out there working to kill the weeds.
So what Norm is saying, if any of you add ammonium sulfate when you're using Roundup or glyphosate, anybody doing that? Why? Not pH. You're okay. We're going to talk about this. If you use Roundup in Indiana water, our waters are hard. Can you see what it did to the jar? Where Roundup wants to go in solution, and that means that on the left I can see through the bottle. It's dissolved. You see the right, a lot of it didn't dissolve. Every single label of glyphosate says add ammonium sulfate or the substitute if your water is hard. I can guarantee, and I've had a bunch of people tell me, Fred, you're not going to believe the difference in control because you're fixing hardness. And I'm going to show you how that works. All right? That's another type of adjuvant as we go into this. And then pH is another one.
Hardness is just a term that we just generally throw out there. I mean, it's just a general term, and it talks about how much calcium, magnesium, and those like kinds of elements. And I can't see that in here. Distilled water is meant to pull out those products.
Distilled water is supposed to be the absence of any of those dissolved solids.
Okay.
Total hardness is right here at the top. It's the blue one. And this one shows 0 total dissolved solids, which is what you'd expect from distilled water. Again, you match up the color. There it is.
Which one of these have got some good hardness in it?
This one's a bad nasty.
Now,
Remember?
yeah, so
That's the water that came out of our tap.
this is coming right out of
And we say in the
drinking water,
publication
and we're going to look
200
at hardness.
to 250
and
is
if you notice
hard.
that this is a very
at the
vibrant
purple.
purple on the first line where I see total hardness, and I'm just going to match up the color. and it looks like it's almost a perfect fit. And I can see some, yeah, so it's between 200 and 400 parts. So would that be very hard water in your case?
It is. It's hard water.
The reason this is important is this is just another factor, along with pH, that controls how well it's going to work.
Folks, these test kits, you get an instant answer. We're going to do them right here. There's different kinds. Get them anywhere, Walmart, anywhere, for 10 bucks. This one here has got 150 strips. If you don't know what your water pH and hardness is, you're working behind the chains. These are, what an investment to do something. Did y'all hear that? You need to know what you got and what you're using. So let me ask, just to show you, yeah. So Ty is going to talk about his system that you have here. And you're not selling this system, but you use it, and there's a reason here in a few minutes you'll talk. Can I get you, this is the water. It's a test strip. That's what it looks like. I just pulled it out, and if I could get you to just put it in the water, put the whole thing in the water. Go ahead and pull it out. It just has to get it wet. Line it up with the blue on top. What's your first name? April. April, tell me Ty's water that he's using, that he's fixed up, how much hardness is there? Okay, let's get our glasses. Both mom and dad's got to get it. Is it closer to 0? It's a real light purple, isn't it? It's not even on the scale. I mean, it's 0. So, Ty, you have your water fixed up, and there's very little hardness in it.
That you tested the RO water?
Yeah. And we expected it, but you had to work at it. Bottled water, the water that came out of that right over there. Go ahead.
I think that's just there for show. I think that came out of the kitchen, unless we ran out of.
Oh, is that right?
Is Dave Mon in here?
Okay, so that's kitchen water. Let's see what this one is. Try that one. And actually, you're supposed to be used, let me do this here. Try that one. It's another kit. They all do the same thing as litmus paper. And the top number is, that's the light blue one, right? That's your hardness. What is it? 0. That is why I love these kits. Instant. I'm not spending money to send it to a lab. This is close enough for what we need. All right? And we'll play with this water out as we go. So I can measure this pretty easy. So here is what happens. When you put, our poster child for hardness is glyphosate. Every single label is going to tell you need to fix it. So you see the red, calcium and magnesium, sir? That's hard water. Notice it has 2 pluses, right? Those 2 pluses are looking for 2 minuses. They want to equal to 0 is what it amounts to. So when you put Roundup, which is minus and minus, when you put that into hard water, the calcium and magnesium grabs it, and then it's too large to go into the plant. That's what's happening. And you're going to see here how we're going to fix it with some adjuvants. Hardness is extremely important for some products. And so, Ty, in terms of what you did, and maybe, I don't know how we're going to work this out at the end, maybe we'll do some of it now. When it comes to what you did,
There's the house water.
That's the house water.
That should be hard water right there.
Well, we'll see. He thinks it's hard water. That's the house. It hasn't been fixed. So, Ty, what you did in your system is you removed hard water from all of the products that you use.
Correct.
Because sometimes that is very spectacular, like with Roundup. Other ones it's less, but you don't have to worry about it. You fixed it.
So with all the foliars that we use, we know that the calcium and the magnesium can be somewhat antagonistic with some of the foliars you use, especially if you have phosphate in it.
Yeah, go ahead.
So there was an advantage to us having the RO water for that. Also, like it's in your publication, P-86, you talk about the half-life. Now, of course, we could have adjusted all that with adjuvants. And you want me to stop?
No, that's good.
Okay, so we could have adjusted our pH with adjuvants. And it gets a little bit more tricky. So we do hot loads here. So let's say we have a 30,000 gallon tank full of hard water, and then we're injecting Roundup into that line as it goes to the tanker. So let's say the first thing we would do is we would treat the tanker load of water with the adjuvants to get that water where we needed it to be. But then I'm still using my regular hard water to move water from the 30,000 gallon storage tank to the tanker. So when I'm putting my Roundup in that line, it's in contact with the hard water. Now, some people claim that we're already tying up a portion of our Roundup just because it became in contact with that hard water. Now, the way we got around some of that is we would put a quick disconnect, kind of like a hydraulic hose, onto the tanker so we could go from a shuttle of Roundup directly to the tanker. So that way it was never in contact with hard water. Or we used a direct injection system on the sprayer to do that. But you still have your total dissolved solids in the water. So if you were to take the hard water and then put it on glass, for example, and boil it, you're going to get all the minerals to come out of solution. You'll never get those minerals put back into solution.
Right.
So we still have the total dissolved solids to deal with. And then those total dissolved solids will leave a precipitate on the leaf, just like when you wash your vehicle, you get hard water spots on it. It takes a little bit to get that off. So under a microscope, you can see that precipitate, that hard water on the leaf that the adjuvants can't take care of.
Now, I'm going to make one thing is, I don't have to have a system, but if my water is hard, I've got adjuvant things that I can add to fix that. And that's what we're going to show you here. Don't have to have a system, but by doing a system, you eliminate a lot of additional, and I guess we talked about it once. You thought in your system, on your farm, you thought you could get this paid off in 3 years? Is that what you told me?
Probably a year and a half. So that is just looking at it from the standpoint of not having to use, we're going to still use some adjuvants, but I'm not going to have to use the same adjuvant load.
Yes.
So it's also great for cleaning equipment.
You bet. What was his water here? His hardness, we're talking hardness, right? His hardness at your dad's house is 500. That's extremely hard. That is about as crappy water you can use for things like Roundup and other products that require it. This is horrible water. Folks, if you just look at these labels, they're telling you when to add stuff, okay? Now, here is one. Y'all know Tom Beckman, some of you do, Indiana Prairie Farmer. That was one of his water. It's 1,000. I'm surprised it even pours. 1,000. Now, let's look at the other component. The other one is acid neutral alkaline. Look at this. On the left is the pH values. And it goes from 0 to 14. And you know that stuff can work on chemistries because where do you think most of your tank cleaners are at? In the scheme of things here, where do you think most of them's at? It's a high pH. And what it does, it cracks your chemicals. So pH can break your chemicals if you don't know what you got, okay? So that's the first thing. And so pH of 7 is neutral, really doesn't mean nothing. But above 7 is alkaline. And so when you have an acid stomach, what do? What do you take? What do y'all take? Huh? An antacid. What antacid is going to be in here, milk of magnesia. So what you're doing is adjusting your stomach pH to get it out of that acid range. And you can see then below 7 are acid, vinegar, and the rest of it. Now, some products, what I want you to see is a pH of 9, alkaline 7 and 5. 5 is acid. If I put this, and I cherry pick, so that you know that, if I pick this herbicide and I put it into pH 9 water, the orange that you see is how long does it take for half that chemistry to be broken down? What does that tell you? Young man here got your arms crossed? You a farmer? Yeah, because you crossed your hands because you're saying, you ain't going to teach me a damn thing. All right, but I'm going to work on you there, boy. First name? Nick. You see that in alkaline water? Half of it's gone in 10 minutes. And again, I'm cherry picking, which means you ain't got time. You mix it, and you had to drive to a field, time you took a smoke, a drink, went to the bathroom, did some paperwork. How much time you got to the field, how much chemistry's left? Half of it. You think that half that chemistry is going to work? Folks, pH is greatly influenced. It influences our chemistries. Look at this fungicide, 2 minutes. Now, I cherry picked. I'm letting you know that these things exist. And then the insecticide, you can see it's pretty stable, right? A whole day. Look at the 7, but look at the 5. Typically, Ty, most of our foliar applied, we probably should say it like that, most of our chemistries like an acid water.
Yeah, so think about a drone. They're constantly filling up all the time. So if you just use hard water in a drone, you're up there constantly refilling all the time. That fungicide is not in contact with that water for too long. So you take a look at the fungicide, you know, pH up there around 9, which I think our well water that we used to use was 8.1. It's not going to last too long, somewhere between pH of 7 and 9. So I don't know what percentage of the people that do ground rigs and they mix up 6,000 gallon ahead of time, do they treat it for pH? I don't know. We used to, some and not, but you know, now with my pH down around 5, but you know, with that data there, even with the pH of 5, I shouldn't be mixing it up at 10 o'clock at night to go to the field at 4 in the morning. By the time I get the rest of that sprayed out, I've already lost some of the effectiveness.
Yes. And so people ask, I got rained out. Is this stuff still good? Well, then I have to go back to the chemistry. I have to see what the pH is. So let's take some fresh ones, if we could. This is the house. Can I get you to? Because these strips have got, you want one that's got hardness and pH. So what she's going to do is to go ahead and then match it up and find your pH, which I think is the orange. And I'm going to show you this on a screen. Do you see it?
Yeah. It's the bottom one.
Yep, bottom one. And what is that one? What's the pH? So between 7.8 and 8.4 is the house. Let's do the RO, which is what Ty's trying to use, what he is using, not trying to use, and we'll show you here what happened. And again, I don't have to have a system, Ty. I can do this with adjuvants in a few minutes, but we're showing you here the impact. It's lower than 6.2. That's as low as my little tabs go.
What we've come up with is 5.3, and we'll still use some adjuvant in that, just a reduced rate.
Yeah. Now 5.3, so you can see what he's doing. He's playing the game on the acid. Most of all your herbicides want to sit in acid water. We have a few. When you read the label, it says do not put into acid water. Okay? Because they break down. And again, you have test kits. Here's a different one here. You can see the pH on the bottom. It's off the scale. And you can see the hardness is right there. It's so easy, so quick, so cheap. Now, this is not you in your industry. A pest control guy mixes up chemistries. In their world, killing spiders is like your invasive weeds. He had one shop that could kill spiders, same chemistries, everything's the same, and the other one he can't kill it. And he said, could my water be influencing it? Look at the pH of this water. It's off the scale. I said, well, sure, that acid could be really breaking it down. I say, play with it. And he did, and guess what, sir? He fixed the water, killed spiders. I'm telling you, this pH and hardness, again, it's nothing new. It's been around for 60 years. Now, I don't expect you to read this. I just want you to see the colors. And this comes out of Whitford. And this is, you can see in alkaline water, look at all the red. That's rapid breakdown. On the other column, look at most of our chemistries in red do not like alkaline water. The yellow is moderate, so you got a lot of red and yellow. And that's what we're fighting, Ty. So you have water that is about 5.3, doesn't make it's 5, and you have no hardness, basically. Okay? So what he's done is taken that out of the system. And now we move on and focus on what we need to be doing. Now, appreciate the fact that hardness and pH
and
are two
hardness
different things.
They're important parts of water quality, but completely unrelated in regards to, which it is, hard versus acid or basic. And we both start with the same source. This happens to be distilled. Put it in and you pull it out.
And that's one of the test
bright
strips.
blue. You see that? No grains of hardness. Be calcium chloride. This is like the calcium that naturally solubilizes when rainwater moves through the soil profile, like you'd find in any of your wells.
So Norm is going to harden up the
This
water.
calcium chloride will dissolve, and as it dissolves, it changes the characteristics of that particular material. A couple of minutes, the water quality in this particular solution will change so that this water hardness is at least 200 grains of parts per million.
That's because
of
he hardened it.
Look at pH. pH again is
orangey.
this third line down here, and this is the difference between pH and how they are completely unrelated. The pH comes in at about 7.5. This hardness shows 200. The original strip that we used to measure hardness for the distilled water shows 0 grains of hardness. Look at the pH. It's still going to be in that same 7.2 to 7.5 range. It doesn't change at all. Hardness is unrelated to pH.
So as we start to move into fixing water, we're going to keep them separate. Now, this came out, we did some programs up at Michigan, and so let's just let you see if this was your numbers. The well water was 250 hard. Is that hard based on what did I say was hard? 250? Okay, it's hard. The pH is 7.8, slightly alkaline, not very good water. Why is the rain out of the gutter have 0 hardness? Yeah? Anybody? Say it again. Okay, so God made it, but he kept it from hitting the ground. So God was helping me in my program. And Lord knows I need help. All right. So it never hit the ground. There's no hardness. It has to hit the ground and dissolve the minerals. And then if you're old enough, that's acid. The water out of the sky is acid. Those of you that are old enough, do you remember we were going to die from acid rain? That's all we heard. Well, we're still here, and we've got a lot more people still. But it's acid coming out of the sky. Okay? Now, again, you have different, I'm trying to show you these test kits, and they're so easy to be able to use. So, water has some attributes that are not good for us, generally speaking, on trying to make these applications. So what we're going to do is add, which is why we say adjuvants. We're going to be asked to add some stuff to the products. Now, the gentleman back here with his hands on his belly, with the hat, there you go, first name. What is it? Tim, Tom? Tim? That don't make a difference. Tim, Tom, Bill, Tim. Tell me what you know about laundry detergent like Tide. Do you wash, and I have to pronounce it because I always thought it was wash until I came to Indiana 33 years ago. Do you wash your clothes? What do you wash them in? Yeah, because you don't do a dadgum thing. Oh yeah, I'm sure you do. Yeah. So, tell me what you know about any of these things you use. I don't care if it's organic or soaps or whatever. What do you know about it? Anything? So I work with the guy on the adjuvant publication. I worked with him, and he says, Fred, tell me what, he makes them. Now, what I did not know is I thought all these were fakes, to be honest with you. I thought it was snake oils. Until I met this guy who develops these for cancer treatments. Most of these adjuvants are used in cancer to help the drugs work better. A lot of products like laundry detergent. How does Tide, a young lady here, how does Tide clean your clothes? Is it Tori? And actually you don't care. You put the soap in and it cleans. But you know Tide wants you to come back and buy their product again, right? And if the Tide or whatever you use doesn't work, then you're not going to be a customer. So how does Tide know that it's oil, grease, pin, sweat, whatever? How do they make it work? They add adjuvants to it. And I've never forgotten, he says, Fred, most of these laundry detergents that we use are high-tech products that nobody just assumes it's soap. They add adjuvants to be able to break that stuff down. It was just amazing. So here is a list of the adjuvants that might be asked on a label.
Adjuvant Answer Lab, foam control for...
And any of you here using foam control? Does it work? Or how do you know? Because you see it. Okay? I'm going to show you some of this. I'm going to show you a roundabout way so that visually you can see it. So when you put in an anti-foam, it's an adjuvant.
For tank mixes. Spray tank mixes can form troublesome foam during agitation.
It'll take just a second.
Tank mix adjuvants may contain an anti-foam ingredient designed to suppress foam. In this experiment, a cylinder containing 1.7 ounces or 50 milliliters of tap water is treated with 0.25% solution of a 90% non-ionic surfactant that does not contain an anti-foam ingredient. Agitation of the surfactant produces foam. As the agitated mixture settles, a foam layer appears above the liquid. A second test cylinder containing tap water is treated with the same use rate of non-ionic surfactant that does contain an anti-foam agent. After agitation, this cylinder shows immediate suppression of foam as the bubbles rapidly break down due to the anti-foam's ability to physically break the surface of the bubbles. In a matter of 5 seconds or less, all of the foam has dissipated.
So that's how that
control of
particular
foam
adjuvant works.
pH
Now,
rating
what's
of
what
7
happens?
is treated with sodium hydroxide.
I want to fix and drop it into acid water instead of the pH being too high. I think he added bleach. I forgot what it was.
This substance is highly alkaline, so it
He's
raises
gonna
the
run
tap
it
water
up
pH to over
extremely
10.
alkaline.
Some spray applications perform poorly in alkaline solutions, so acidifying agents are used to lower and hold the pH at acidic levels. In a second experiment, tap water with a neutral pH of 7 is treated with an acidifying and buffering adjuvant at a rate of 0.25% of the solution.
And you can see it
Immediately,
dropped
the
it down.
pH is lowered to an acidic level of 2.3. To confirm this adjuvant's buffering or pH holding capability, the highly alkaline sodium hydroxide is added to the mixture.
He's going to try to push that number up, but those products don't allow that. They keep it down low.
A follow-up pH reading shows very little movement of the pH, indicating the strong buffering capacity of this adjuvant.
These are easy to
An additional
fix.
dose of sodium hydroxide is applied.
All right? Now, here's one of the key parts. Look at the glyphosate on top. The water was this was in a lab, 7.48. All right? So 7.8, which is slightly alkaline. You put in glyphosate in water, what did it do? What did it do to the water? Huh? It lowered it. The chemistry lowered it. That's why when you read on the Roundup label, it says add ammonium sulfate, because they can't add enough, but it warns you, do not acidify this product. I had a guy about 2 or 3 years ago, burned up hundreds of acres because he acidified it. It's already acidified, and he made battery acid. So notice that chemistry, but look at that 2,4-D, what it did do. Not a whole lot. Now, Ty, based on your experience, would you be happy with the 6.98, which is 7? Would you be happy? Would you like to have that pH dropped? Yes. I would drop it too. I'd drop it in everything. And this is an example here that what I like to see you do as you play with your chemistries is pretty simple. Your first tank, young man, mix up your first tank and whatever that you normally use. Take one of these, stick it with what you've mixed, test it with the chemistries already mixed. And a lot of these chemicals are going to drop it into the acid rain. Some of them won't. And as the example of this particular 2,4-D that we did.
What the industry calls a water conditioner, this material is going to affect the pH, and it's going to take the water hardness, which remains at that same level, but it's going to take it out of the equation, it's going to tie up the calcium, and it's going to allow that glyphosate molecule to come completely back into solution and be available for weed control. A quart
So
per
he's
100.
adding to fix the hardness in this
You're
example.
watching the bottom of that.
Look at the color.
Immediately,
What's the
that
cloud in the
reaction that we
bottom?
saw with the calcium and the glyphosate, that reaction is now being displaced by a new reaction, and that water conditioner is actually taking the calcium that tied up the glyphosate, and it very efficiently and effectively reverses that process. And the only thing that had changed on here,
The water turned clear. What does that mean? If a bottle is clear and you're looking through the water, what does that tell you? Everything that's in it's dissolved, which is what you want. When it was cloudy, you had chunks of it in there that blocked it. So that's what a water conditioner will do. It will take it and fix that water and release the glyphosate back into the water so that it can work. Now, let me go, I think I went 1, 2, so do you remember we showed you this one? There's the calcium and magnesium, Roundup stuck to it. When you add your ammonium sulfate, Andy, as you said you did, which is good, you notice that the calcium And you notice that the magnesium is still in red. The ammonium sulfate, you see the blue one? It's got 2 minuses. You see that? When you put ammonium sulfate or the substitutes, it says, Roundup, get off the calcium and magnesium. I'm stronger than you. And what it does, it takes that Roundup, the glyphosate, and it hooks it to another plus, ammonium ion. The plant says, oh my God, I'm being fertilized. And what they don't know is what? Right behind that fertilizer is the Roundup. That's how it works. Now, here is a real field-applied example. And so let me ask gentleman in the very back with the gray beard. Yes, sir. First name. Chris. Chris, well water out of this well was 9. These are not made up numbers. This is real numbers to show you. It's 9. How do you describe that, Chris? Acid, neutral, alkaline. Alkaline. Yes. Really bad water. This is what breaks, remember that little, half-lives? This is what breaks chemistries down. It's coming out of a well. And it's not it's pretty typical. And Chris, is the water hard? We say 250, so it's okay. And again, I'm just using these little strips. The 2,4-D, when I added 2,4-D to the water, did it impact pH? Nothing. Now, this is an example where I'm telling you can drop it because it doesn't like this kind of water, generally speaking. I put Roundup, and it was a Roundup, and you can see, Chris, it made it into an acid, correct? They have it, and it drops it where they know that it works best at 5.0. They know it. That's why they drop it. Chris, I added ammonium sulfate. Did it do anything to the pH? Well, it went from 9 to 8 and a 5, right? Didn't do nothing. When you fix the hardness, it does nothing for pH. And then you can see I added an acidifier, and I got it down to 4. Now, Chris, here is because if you look at this, it's pretty straightforward with these little kids. AMS, how come when I fix hardness, that number didn't drop? I'm sorry, say it again. I think Ty kind of brought that up. It's still in your water. You never took it out. Though now you've recombined it. What you've done is you've recombined it, but it's still there. It never went away. Now, the other couple that we do, then we're going to talk about are they worth the money? This is some work we've done in Florida. Which one of these would you like to have on as your coverage? I hope it's obvious, right? One on the left, right? But water can't do that naturally. And for some products, that's pretty important. You see how round they are, sir? They're round, just like we showed you coming in. And so I want to make water wetter. And some labels tell you got to have a surfactant. And so this is what would happen. It's evaporating. It's not going into the plant. When you add a surfactant, it makes water wetter. Now, Ty, you fixed your hardness. You fixed your pH. But you still need to add surfactants at time. Is that correct? I did last year. Yeah. That doesn't change because that's another issue that I got to get this water to spread. And that's what you do when you buy a surfactant. Now, that was the one that we showed you here where the water drop was being stuck into the hairs. It's got to reach the leaf. And I can't slow this down anymore. When you add a surfactant, it makes it wetter and it just puts it down into the leaf. That's a surfactant. All right, and then the last one that we're going to do two more. Sir, oil and water don't mix. That's a fact. So we're using water to put on a leaf. And we know that sometimes some chemistries need help to get into the plant. So in this example, I've got a piece of yellow paper. And this is what we use when we do drift studies. When water touches that piece of paper, it turns blue. That's how we measure. What I've done is put a piece of wax paper on top of that. Now, what we're going to do is add an oil to it, sir. What does an oil do? What's the function? If a surfactant makes water wetter, spreads it, what does an oil do? Say it again. What kind of? An oil, oils will mix with oils. So when it tells you to add a crop oil, seed oil, whatever, that oil gets on the surface and it breaks that, it's mixing. And it creates cracks for the water to come through. So what we're going to show you here is, as bad as it can be, I'm going to take this yellow paper and I'm going to put on an oil. I was going to put on an oil. Let's go back here. Can you start that one for me, young man? That's got an oil in it. And you see the water right there never got through. Can you see that right there? That blue means that oil has eaten through that wax and gotten to that yellow paper. That's all I'm showing. Now, I cut this down to where we didn't have to watch it do this. Took a little bit of time, but that's what an oil does.
And so you can see after 2.5 minutes how an adjuvant such as methylated seed oil not only reduces the surface tension of the droplet, but also increases the absorption across a waxy membrane.
Okay, that's what an oil does. Now, let's test your knowledge. What does this product here do? You should be able to read it. What does it do? Yeah, antifoam. Okay, now look at these. Come on, Fred. This one here, now you should be able to read these labels a little bit. Helps the spray to stick. Reduces, so it's working on hardness. And it slows the drying time. Sometimes, sir, some of these chemistries, it needs more time to be able to go through, so they're trying to keep it wetter without it drying. What is this one doing? Look at where my arrows are at. What's it doing? Sir, what's it doing? Yeah, I like that. That's the best answer. He says it's this. Okay? Making water wetter. Ammonium sulfate. What's it do? It's hardness. That's what it does. And the substitutes of ammonium sulfate. All right, what does this product do? What does an oil do? Helps to penetrate. All right, here is one that's a surfactant, a spreader, and an oil for penetrator. And you can get every combination that there is. All right, so let's look at this because we're fixing to answer, is it worth the money? The brown that you see here is the adjuvant. In this case, it's an oil. This is the label of the product. The herbicide says It wants an oil adjuvant must be 80%. This is on the label. Now, I'm going to ask you this, if you think about it. You buy a herbicide, which is mainly what we deal here, a herbicide, right? I'm the manufacturer. I'm FMC, I'm Syngenta, it makes no difference. Corteva. This is my product. I make money off this product. Unfortunately, I don't make very much money, so I all go into the seed business. Now, not a lot of profit. Most people don't believe it. Can I borrow your cup a second? I'm telling you as the user, when you buy my herbicide, you need to add a surfactant. You need to add an oil. You need to fix something for hardness. Do you realize I ain't making no money off of this? I'm the manufacturer. Years ago, I gave this to the dealers. They wish they had it because there's more profit in this than in this. So, does that make any sense to you why a manufacturer would tell you to buy somebody else's product and increase the price when you're fighting for pennies an acre? Does that make sense to you? Why would you do that? And what's the answer? This product doesn't work as well unless you add this product. It's stupid to add this stuff when you might leave me as a customer to go somewhere else, right? Folks, so when you see this, you take it to the bank. So let me ask you this. How would you answer this? Gentleman in the very back, next to the very end. You thought you could get here at 5 in the morning. You wouldn't have to answer any. No, where's that new guy? There you are. Forgot all about you, new guy. Take a look at this example here. My label is right here for my herbicide. This one here is the adjuvant that I'm adding. I'm going to buy. Does my demand for that work with this product? I need 80%. I got 83, so what do you say? Yeah. I wish they would stick with terminology, but they don't. They need a 75% surfactant. Will that one work? No, you missed it. It's a trick question. It's a trick question because you did what we all do. You went to that number right there. What does that 90% tell you? It's got all this stuff in it, right? So what I want is 75%. Most of them are going to tell you how much surfactant because that's the expensive part. If I am not an honest, and most of them are, but if I'm not an honest company, I don't want you to know that because that's the expensive part of the product. So would that one work? That would not work. Folks, I'm telling you, this is some serious stuff here. And since you can't find it, if you ever had a label, look online and look for surfactant. Look for adjuvants. Just try to find it. Yeah.
So that one doesn't work, but could you add more to make it?
Yeah, okay. Yes, you're a farmer. So his question is, it don't work, so I'm going to add more. All right? How much more are you going to add? Because this stuff's expensive. So my answer is no. I mean, you could. You're just dinking around with it. I'd rather get you one up front to get what you need because you're going to waste a lot of money. Because you ever put soap in the sink like to do dishes? But hopefully you do dishes occasionally. You and the guy that never washes his clothes. You should. You got a great household here. So you ever watch what you do? You got like Mr. Clean, or you got Mr. Clean. It's got yellow. So what do? It's got a rate on it. Nobody reads it. You put it in the sink and you're filling up with water. Then what do? You're looking at it. what do you always do? You know, you put more in because it ain't yellow enough. You're just guessing. So the answer is you could, but you're just kind of messing around. So I'd rather see you know what you're buying. Again, when I work with the vegetable people, for instance, I always give them warnings. Play with this a little bit before you do it, because we're making these products hotter, Jason, hotter, which means more effective, and some of our vegetables are kind of sensitive to some of our products. But you can see here, especially on the Roundup, it's telling you don't add anything. You can use ammonium sulfate as an example, and there are rates that they give it to us. So the bottom line, folks, this spray droplet is important if you are willing to try to improve performance. That's all. If we're trying to get better, which is what we're all trying to do. Is there a science? Yes, there is. There is a science. Do they work? Yes. It's basic chemistry, nothing super duper. Again, I had to learn it. Are they worth the money? And as we were talking about, young fella, at Keystone, do you sell adjuvants? How difficult is it to get farmers to spend the money for the adjuvant? Not because you probably don't give them a choice. Because you know if you don't use them, they ain't going to be happy. So my point here is that these adjuvants and understanding water, if you're not going to buy the surfactants, the oil, the hardness, swap the product out, because they're not going to work like you suspected what you want them to work. All right, and that's why knowing the water. And so you saw, was it April? I'm sorry. You saw how easy it was, April, for you to measure this stuff? I mean, it's just easy. You can buy these anywhere to play around with the water that we have. Now, you have this publication. If you don't have it, did we have any left? Oh, we're out of them? Okay. So that's the publication. And then you also have this one, which is the test kits. So if you're interested, take a look at it. So with that tie, you talked a little bit about why you did what you did. And I just wanted to explain the system a little bit for those of you that have an interest in cleaning up their water, basically. So Ty, I'll turn it over to you before I finish up. Got one more piece.
The next part, so it takes a half hour, is that correct?
That's correct. All right, I've got maybe 10 minutes worth of a couple of updates on regulatory stuff, but yes, so go ahead. You need the light back on for you? You're just going to talk, right?
No, keep me in the dark. So, how we went down this path a little bit is we purchased a green lightning machine in May. The first one was delivered in May. The next one came, I think, later in June. If you're not familiar with that, it's supposed to take atmospheric in, put it into the water. You probably read about it on Ag Talk, Precision Planting. Tried one last year and had some good results. At the time, we were told, use soft water, don't use RO water. So we hooked it in. And then after a few weeks, our machine quit working, and then it was, you need to use RO water. So we purchased a small RO unit just for the green lightning machine. And I think that was capable of doing, as I recall, 1,000 gallon per day. So we purchased it, and we did that work ourselves for the 1,000 gallon per day unit. Then as we was further researching RO water, and there's various places we went for that information, we felt like, well, there's some extra added benefits for that. I didn't even realize you could get an RO system that could do a whole farm. So then we stepped it up and we purchased a 17,000 gallon per day RO unit. And again, we attempted to do that ourselves. And then Terry Eads, he's sitting here in the back from Clearwater up at Wabash. He happened to be here on the farm picking up something for his corn head. And we were just happened to be back there at the hog barn working with the RO system. And he just happened to ask if we did any work with RO units. And but we were kind of up above our heads in it at that point. So visited for a while. It turns out that the path that we were on with the installation of the RO unit was a little bit more complicated than we thought. You can't just put an RO unit in and just run the water through. You have to have a surge tank, which we did have all that. Well, anyway, they got involved. We have 3 huge water softeners that treat the water ahead of the RO unit. We had just purchased some from Menards. Well, it wasn't really taken into account that when you're producing the RO water, if you don't have your water softeners timed in sequence, you know, we weren't going to have soft water going into it all the time. So now we've got 3 big water softeners down there, and so that way when one's charging, you know, you got the water going through the other. It takes a lot of water. So in an RO system, I think approximately 40% of our water is RO coming out, 60% goes down to the county ditch, which is just all the minerals and everything. So we tied in, the old well we started off using was the one for the hog barn. And ever since that thing was drilled in the late 80s, early 90s, I remember it had a sulfur smell to it, and you can't run a lot of sulfur through an RO system or you're going to plug up the filters. So we went down a long process of trying to figure out what to do with that, get the water to where we could use it. We knew that up here at the house we didn't have that sulfur smell in it, and we ended up drilling another well up there at the house then as well. And so we upgraded our pumps. We're using 2 out of the 3 wells here on the farm, and we also added an additional RO unit that does another 4,000 gallon per day. So right now we're able to produce 21,000 gallon per day of finished product. We're using 1 well up at the house, which that well is 220 feet deep, and I think we're doing approximately 40 gallon per minute with the pump we have on it. And then we've got another well back here that was put in at the hog barn in the late 80s. That well has a capability of 80 gallon per minute, but we did not put that big a pump on there. I can see us actually using all 3 wells, upgrading our pumps, and doing some other things with the additional water capacity that we have here. So anyway, we knew that we did a little bit of experimentation. We knew that the base component of our Green Lightning water was RO water. So we raised non-GMO beans last year on a majority of our acres. We left out the Class Act, which was the ammonium sulfate, when we post-applied some Basagran. And down the road, we went and sprayed the Basagran with the Green Lightning water, still left the surfactant in it, but left out the ammonium sulfate. We did not speckle the beans in the manner that we did where we used the Class Act, which is what you would expect, and we had just as good a weed control. Now, I did not reduce the herbicide rate any with that. The few people that I've talked to that have used RO units have reduced their contact herbicide rates by 10 to 30%. Now, we're not jumping right in and reducing our herbicide rates initially. Do I think we will probably get there? Potentially. But in our non-GMO system, if you're trying to kill weeds that are up, you've already lost the battle. So I'm not, last year in the majority of our non-GMO acres, all they got hit was with pre-emerge. Probably only 15% of our acres even had a contact herbicide sprayed on it. It was just constantly, put down Authority Supreme early, then come in with Anthem Max, and then we came in with Dual. So it was just constantly every 3 weeks hitting it with a residual to keep those weeds from coming up. We got the RO unit fully functioning, I'm going to say the 10th of August or something like that. So we did use it for spraying fungicides on corn. So we sprayed all of our corn acres with fungicide once. We had a plain do about 1,200 acres, and then we came in with that sprayer back there. It raises up, the other one's raised up. We sprayed all of our corn acres with fungicide. The rest of them, we used Veltima at 10 ounces, which was the high rate, wanting to make it last longer. And then we came in 3 weeks later, as I recall, with either Headline Amp or Triva Pro, and sprayed on, I forget how many ounces, it was like 13.7, I forget the rate on Triva Pro. And we did approximately 60% of our acres. You know, one of the things I alluded to earlier, the benefits of RO water is with some foliars, especially if you have phosphate in it, your total dissolved solids, you still got that to deal with. Even though if you treat your water, you still got that to deal with. And not all well water is created equal by any means. We just kind of felt like our well water wasn't the best. I kind of felt like, if you go down into Boone County, I know a farm down there, he's actually pumping soft water out of his ground. You know, it's, the neighbor's well water could be totally different than mine. Our well back there is night and day difference from a taste standpoint than the well up here. That one's 90 feet deep, these back here are 220. We've got another aquifer at 35 feet, which is the dug well at the end of the road. So the reason I ended up doing this meeting today was across the road. This was, we sprayed Green Lightning and Veltima across the whole field except for 15 acres, I'd say. The 15 acres that we did not spray, it did not have the Green Lightning water, it did not have a mineral, just call it a mineral pack that we put with it. That corn made 270, where we had the Green Lightning and the mineral pack, that corn was 285. I got a slideshow later on, I'll show it to you. But it did not have Veltima where it made 270, whereas the rest of the field did have Veltima. Now 3 weeks later, the whole field did have Trivapro. So the whole field did get fungicide. So I don't know, is the difference in yield because of a second spraying of fungicide? Was it because of the Green Lightning? Was it because of the mineral pack we added to it? Was it all three? That we don't know. Now one thing Dad always had me doing here since, I'm going to say the 80s, was he had a refractometer and a garlic press out of the kitchen, and he'd have me go out there and squeeze the juices out of the corn stalks or the leaves and soybeans to see what the level of the sugar was in the plant. Nothing ever really seemed to move the needle. I mean, no matter what he tried, nothing really seemed to change it very much. 1988, I remember I went out and grabbed a plant and the bricks was just off it. I mean, it was really, really high. I thought Dad was onto something. Dad wanted me to take him out there and show him where I found it. Turned out the plant I grabbed didn't have an ear, so the sugars didn't have anywhere to go, so they were all in a stalk. So that was the drought year. So not all stalks had ears. So across the road, where we had the Green Lightning and the other additives, the bricks was 9, 10, or 11. Where we didn't spray that, the bricks reading was 5. The reason the bricks reading is important, and that's why I invited Dr. Dykstra to come in, and he's going to speak right before lunch and then after lunch. And this is something that Dad's told me for 40 years, is you get the plant healthy enough where you get the sugar content in the plant up there high enough, your exudates, your sugars that go out to roots are going to feed your biology, and then it becomes resistant to fungal diseases when you get up there in an area 10-ish, say there. So all of a sudden I'm like, hey, we're getting our corn healthy enough that maybe I wouldn't have to be out there spraying for tar spot. So if I can be out there spraying a little bit earlier than what I did, I was out here, the first spraying was, I'm going to say brown silk. If I can get my plant, if I got something that's going to help me increase plant health, whether that be nutrition, whatever it may be, it's like the first time in 4 decades that we've found something, don't really know 100% what it was we did that increased the bricks reading, but Jaden, fresh out of Purdue, a skeptic and everything, that's, you know, nature coming out of the university. He went out there and sampled several areas, and there was clearly a difference. If we could get up there to a bricks reading of around 14, approximately, you're not going to have insect issues. I don't think insects have a pancreas. I'm not 100% certain on that. They can't metabolize the sugar. You know, mosquitoes, they don't like healthy people. They like unhealthy people. Insects, I think their antenna can kind of sense, you know, these type of things, and they're drawn to the unhealthy crops. They just like the unhealthy stuff. You know, there's, what is there, 7,000 different elephant dung beetles or something like that. You know, it's not, insects are attracted to the not healthy stuff. if we can get our crop health up there, now all of a sudden, if we're having to spray corn 1-2 times with fungicide, that gets pretty expensive. If I can do some things to get the crop health up there and eliminate that fungicide application, or at least combine it with some hybrids that have a high tolerance to tar spot, I think there's a significant savings. Plus the crop health. A crop that is high in Brix reading is going to need less water and it's going to need less nitrogen. So,
Ty, let me bring up something because it's bothersome, and I want to make sure if our weed scientist was here, I would think that they would tell us. They're always telling you, quit cutting these rates, right? They all say, don't cut the rates. We got enough problems when we cut the rates. So for me, Ty, when we clean up the water, the intent is for that herbicide to work better, and if it's on the label to do it, they've already done the testing at those rates. I'm not cleaning up my water with these adjuvants to cut rates to save money. And again, I'm not a weed scientist, but I think if the weed scientists were here, they would tell us that, I think. And maybe you've heard them and maybe not, or you would disagree with that, but.
So, the one gentleman I spoke to, he said he cut his contact herbicide rates, he was able to do it 30% across the board. And he cut out his ammonium sulfate, except for he said on Liberty. I had to keep the ammonium sulfate up there, but I was still able to cut my rates by 1/3. I'm not going to jump out there and just immediately cut herbicide rates. Now, go back into the late 80s and 90s, Dad was spraying 2 ounces of Pursuit when the normal rate was 4. We lost our residual. That was a combination type product, and yes, it can help build up resistance.
So here is how this stuff ties, and that's a great thing talk about your dad. So I've got a herbicide, and these herbicides, if it's done correctly, we know about how long they're going to last residual. When you start screwing with the rates, sure, you can cut it, but maybe you kill some weeds, but I'm probably going to lose residual again, is an issue, right? So I guess I'm looking at.
I don't think there's a herbicide out there now that anybody is really 100% happy with in terms of how well it controls weeds compared to the way it used to.
That's correct.
So if I can still keep my rate the same, but improve my control, it's a win.
Yes. Yes.
So one thing Michael Horsch said when they were talking about these sprayers a long time ago, so the sprayer has nozzle spacing at 10 inches. So theoretically, in practicality, you can have your boom height at 10 inches over the crop. Because your 10-inch nozzle spacing, we can get it down low. So he was always advertising that you could cut your herbicide rates just by using this sprayer because you're going to get your boom and actually able to accurately keep it just above the crop. Versus having it up here, and you take a look at how many of those spray droplets are actually going to get carried away, how many of them are going to get dried up and not make it down there in contact with the weeds. He said the chemical companies did a little bit more than slapping on the wrist. They weren't too happy. So they told him, he says, you better stop talking that way. So publicly he stopped talking that way because they got more money than he does. So he didn't want to get them angry. So on this sprayer back here, which this is the one that we used on our farm, it's got 1,100 hours on it right now. There is a non-stock piece of equipment on it. There is a big camera system that's on the back right-hand corner that's overhanging on the boom. There's one on both sides, and there's also a big steel cabinet up there between the engine and the boom.
Ty, you're talking about this right back here, right?
Yes.
There's that blue one there, and I assume you got them on both sides, right?
No, it's just on one side, but it's on the back side of that boom folded up. Yeah. So Fred, if you look, see, there's 2 blue ones right there. One's right in front of the other.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So you might not be able to sit on that side, but they're right there.
So that's through WHIN, which is Wabash Heartland Innovation Network, I think, which was provided with a grant from Eli Lilly. We've worked with them for I don't know how many years in testing new technology. That system was developed with some MIT guys. And we didn't get the thing really fully operational till the last few days of spraying fungicide in corn, which was the end of August, maybe even the beginning of September. We went pretty late. Well, there's several reasons we were doing fungicide. We were also getting dry and, trying to reduce the ethylene production. But anyway, that camera, the reason there's one in the front is you're spraying fungicides. Let me back up a second. The whole purpose of the camera is to measure what your coverage is on the leaf. So the idea is to try and fine tune what our volume should be, what our pressure should be, what our boom height should be, what our speed should be. So if we go out there and say we're just doing our normal system and that thing tells us that our coverage is 15%, that's not good enough. So especially when it comes to fungicide, coverage is important, especially in corn and soybeans. The way they're advertising, and again, this is going to make you cringe a little bit perhaps, but farm up north of Lafayette, he cut his herbicide rates, I forget what percentage, because of the way he was out there. He'd been operating his sprayer for all his life, a certain pressure, droplet size, speed, volume, etc. He was able to increase his coverage to the plant, I forget by what percentage. He's like, well, if I'm getting that much more on the plant, the way these MIT guys see it is that you can get by with less herbicide. He did. I'm not quite going there just yet. I mean, we'll experiment with it some more. So when they put that system on, they came out here with a spray table, and they probably had 15 different adjuvants. And what they went through is they wanted to actually use my water, put those different adjuvants in, so that way they could tell us what worked the best with our water to improve, or as much as we can, the efficacy of the way we run the sprayer. At the time, we were we still had our hard water. We were switching over to the other water, so I said, don't even bother, because this water in 5 days we're not even going to use. So we're going to have them come out again this spring. We'll try stuff, such as running molasses in there and all those other type of things with our water and see where we can really dial it in. When we were going out there in beans, I know we ended up running a little bit more pressure. We didn't tinker with. They were constantly updating software, and this was the first horse sprayer they'd ever put it on, so that was kind of new to them. They flew out here from Massachusetts, I think, all the time. I think towards the end, they finally got things going. I think, Gary, were we running 25% coverage? Is that what they wanted you to be, 25% coverage? They did send me an operator's manual, so we'll look at it. But that's just one of the tools that we can use to try and help dial things in.
Now, we ain't going to read the manual. Who's going to read the manual? Big boy, that's you. Yeah, we going to read the manual. All right, you're done. All right. So, our whole point, Ties and R, is you need to know something about your water. Water influences all we do. That's it. Get a test kit, play with it, dink around with it, see if you can improve performance. Because everything we're doing, Ties, are a few percentage better control, and we got problem weeds and so on. All right, any questions? Is your RO guy here? Stand up if you would, whoever you are. I don't know. Oh, there. All right. So there is the RO guy. You install them, is that right? Sell them? So he's in that very corner. If you have an interest, go by there and see him. Ask questions to him. He puts them in. All right. Last thing I want to do before we show the little clip from, is it from the state chemist? Couple of updates. Oh, I don't know, 3 years ago, the Indiana General Assembly decided they wanted all of the pesticide rules, regulations to be in law. Folks, I work for a politician. I was appointed by one. I know how things work. And do you know the difference in a regulation and a law? It's a huge difference. What's the difference? Anybody? I've been surprised how we don't know that, I mean collectively, and probably I didn't, but I was in that job. Go ahead. You were doing so good. You got half of it right, and then you kept talking. All right. So, law enforcement, okay, let me go back. So laws are passed by people that we elect. Regulations are passed by bureaucrats that we don't elect. So the General Assembly said we need to be responsible for what is in fact in place. With pesticides, they said we want to be responsible. And law enforcement, and we have the state chemist, basically law enforcement, they enforce laws and rules with this. So what happens when the Indiana General Assembly opens up a law and starts doing all of this? People who don't know what they're doing. A handful. There's nothing wrong. Some of them are good at insurance. Some are good at transportation. Some are good at business. But these men and women get together, and it's like making sausage. And when it all comes out, somebody forgot to put the outside to the sausage on it. It's bits and pieces. So they came back and they fixed it. Give them credit for that. So they made changes. And the main point was we cannot in Indiana be more restrictive than EPA. We had a bunch of rules that I thought were good rules that they decided that were not good rules. We're not going to be more stringent. So here is the first one. You no longer are required as farmers using the chemicals on your farm. There is no more storage requirements. No containment. So young man, you can take all those mini bulks that you've been hiding in the barn, that your daddy's been hiding and grandpa's been hiding because you didn't have containment. Now you can bring them out in full view. No more containment. Isn't that cool? I don't know. Is that good or bad? Some of you now, that's good. Some of you said, no, that's stupid. But whatever, it's up to you now to make that decision. They did not change fertilizer. How much fertilizer can you store? I wish they would have changed it, but they didn't. How much fertilizer can you store on your farm without containment? 7,500, you got it. 7,500 gallons, and what did you say? 3 containers of 2,500 gallons. Tanks can't be more than 2,500, which is why you said can't be connected, but you do it all the time. But it's, well, we all know, it's 2,500. I was hoping they were going to raise it to 10,000 because that would let us unload easier to unload what? Two semis fertilizer, and it still may happen. Okay, any questions on that? The other one that impacts you is this. Anybody here applying restricted products? And the answer is yes. That's why you're here. That when you apply restricted products, remember I used to work for you, sir. Let's say you hired me. First of all, it's a bad mistake. But you hire me, and it used to be that you could say, Fred, take that machine, go spray the products. And you still can with general use. But restricted products, they got rid of all the stuff we had, and now we divert to EPA. So you have 2 choices for any of your employees. Make me pass the core test, which is your permit, or every time I have to spray a different field, you're going to have to do things in the morning like check the equipment, make sure I'm trained, tell me some site-specific information about that. It just goes on. There's a whole list. I don't think you can comply with that. It's so much easier to make the person get a permit and you're done with that. I don't know if that makes any sense or not. And you're going to say your next question, who's going to catch me? And the answer is nobody. Except when you have a drift. Drift complaints is what this whole thing is going to come down to when they look at it. Any questions on that?
So if we're out there using the weed wiper and using peroxide,
Yes?
I gotta have to be licensed.
Now we're going to break this up. Are you talking as a farmer or commercially? The farmer, yes, the man or woman who is handling any of the chemical. And by the way, I just got that clarified yesterday when somebody asked me a question. The guy taking a hot load, putting the hose on, is considered a user. So the answer is yes. Now, let me back up. That's the general answer. Is that product a restricted use product? If it is, they're in. If it's not, they're out. Farmers are not regulated with general use chemicals. Only one that's got that restricted banner. Questions on that? If you've got employees, start the process of making them, getting them a permit. Anybody here using a drone? Oh, this is more. If you would, raise your hand. For your farm or commercial? Spray drone? Spray drone? How about over here? That's 3 more than I've had. This is my 12th talk. I've been around the whole state. My 12th talk. I have not had one spray drone of all of these farmers. Now, for a spray drone, what do you need? What do you need? What category? You saying, I don't know, I got one. Huh? Oh, that's a good answer. I ain't started yet. Okay, that's a good answer. What do you need? Category 11. As a farmer, you need a category 11. And they're going to put that onto your private applicator permit. Just like we do fumigation, manure, category 14. It's going to be part of your permit. So when you come to a program that Amy and Ty have put on, it's on your permit. You go to three PARPs like we do here. It's the same PARP for all of them. There's nothing additional. Category 11. Anybody here commercial, right? If you're doing drone work commercially, category 11, and that allows you to spray everything. Ponds, right-of-way, mosquitoes. I mean, it's all inclusive, category 11. You don't need category 1 as an example. Any questions on that? Folks, I saw one, Ty, was Monday at Couts. Guy brought his unit in. He had a trailer. This is the most amazing thing. He had 2 tanks. They're double. Have you seen those double-decker trailers? They got double-decker trailer. He's got 2 600-gallon tanks of herbicide on the bottom. He's got another tank. He can do a hot load, separate pumps. He's got a water tank. He's got chargers. They're $4,000 a piece. These things, these are expensive because they're running full time, putting a lot of work. And all of that stuff, all the power goes to the very top. So he's on top. The drone flies in. He's got a deal right there. It looks like a gas hose. He can fill it up. He can go right here and grab the batteries because everything has been done. And it's just like racing cars. Just amazing how much money they put into that. Fully lighted. So at nighttime it lights up, or early morning they can see how it works. So category 11 for that. The dicamba products have been suspended. You're not supposed to use them coming up the season if you have them. And that's been lawsuits. And any of you here use the dicamba products? Great products, but had a problem with what? Drift. Some of your keystone places would not allow you to use them. Some of you apparently are using them. We don't know if we're going to get them back. Probably not going to get it back this season, and not sure it's going to go over the top of beans. For soybeans, I'm sorry. It is for soybeans. Thank you. I make an assumption, Ken. It's only for the soybeans that most of the use was at. Thank you for doing that. Nothing new in the DOT realm of work. I do a lot of that, so if you have questions, you can ask me later. Any of you using empty weight plates to haul your stuff? Got a couple of you, 3, 4. Who raised their hand back here? Somebody did, in the very back. Yep. Semi or straight truck? You ain't too bright, are you? If you raise your hand, I'm going to ask you. Go ahead. Speak up louder. Semi. So watch this. He's plating a semi at normally we plate at what? 78 plus. Right? You're plating at 32, 34, 36, something in that range. So that plate is picking up the empty weight of the truck and of the trailer. And how much you putting in it legally? Plus your 10%, because in Indiana you get 10%. He's carrying 88,000 on a, whatever, 34,000 plate, and that's legal. So you went from a roughly $1,000 plate down to $300 or $400 just because of the plate. You can do that on semis, on straight trucks as well. Anybody doing it on a straight truck? It's only farmers. Only farmers. Yeah, now, yeah, who said that? What did you say? Yeah, now, there's conditions with that. These are primarily trucks that are hauling stuff back and forth, things that you produce. Hogs, corn, beans. So the conditions are you have to stay off the interstate when you are full, because the interstate you have to cover the weights. On interstates you're only giving it 1.5% over the plate, which is nothing. You have to stay off the interstate when you're full, but when you're empty you can come back on because you got the plates to cover your weights. And when you use that tractor trailer as an example, and I hook it to another trailer that has fertilizer, bulldozer, backhoe, whatever, that's illegal too. You didn't produce those items. So you're basically talking about trucks that are basically hauling grain back and forth, and that's it. One guy called me up and said, "Fred, I'm going to buy you lunch." I said, "What's that?" He said, I have, what he told me, 12 trucks. And he says, "You realize how much money you saved me?" I said, "Yeah, it was quite a bit, wasn't it? It better be a good lunch." He said, I said, "You know what the rules are?" He said, "Yeah, I know what the rules are." He says, "Well, let me tell you, I don't follow them." I don't care. Makes me no difference. You follow what you want. But I said, if you get caught, where's it going to go from? I'm hauling 88,000 pounds. Where's it going to go to? The empty weight plate. It goes all the way down. So those at 5 or 10 cents a pound, I guess depending on the county, that can be pretty expensive, correct? The guy said, "Yeah, but if I do it just for a couple of years, I made my money already." All right? Just understand it goes back to the empty weight plate, so it's quite an expense. I was on a farm the other day, and I never seen it. It was dry grain. I don't know, I guess this is an unusual year for grain being so dry, at least where I was at. And I'm sitting there. Normally it piles up, and you got to move. This grain was just looked like water. It was just flattening out. He was at 94,000 pounds. I said, "Are you going to stop?" He says, "I make money moving grain." I said, "Knock yourself out." 94,000, empty weight plate. But that's pretty expensive. So if you're interested in that, we can talk a little bit about it. But if you've got those trucks, it's in the law. It's a law, folks. It's something we found about 15 years ago. When you went to the license branch, you have any problems? So you tell them what you want, you get it. And the beauty of it is you don't have to do the stupid 2290, the form that you have to have when your plates are above 54,000. So, and then the last one, and then we'll stop. I did not realize that if you're caught overweight, that there are no points on your license. Did y'all know that? Or a guy was worried he got caught on weights and he thought it was going to go against his points. And I looked, and it does not go against your points. It's just a fine. I thought for me that was interesting. All right, any questions or comments? The folks that are back, if we still have some of the water quality publications up here, so whenever we're done with the last little film, come up here and help yourself to the water, how to use the test kits. All right, any questions or whatever? Young man, what's my take-home message on my adjuvant talk? Use them. Okay, that's good enough. That's all. You betcha. All right. So with that, Amy, I'm going to turn it over to you. And what's the plan of attack?
So Jaden's going to get our video up on the regulatory topic for 2024. I do apologize. It's 20 minutes long and it's kind of dry, but it's good information. So we'll watch this and then we'll get everybody signed in for your credits. So go ahead.
To understanding the revised worker protection standard. You may not know it, but the worker protection standard has been around since 1991 or 92. And a few years ago, they revised some of it to make it a little more user-friendly and to make it a little more understandable. You need to know that even though they've tried to make it more understandable, and they have, the worker protection standard is a pretty complicated federal regulation. I highly recommend you go to the Pesticide Education Resources website and download an entire copy of the How to Comply manual, as this PowerPoint doesn't really talk about everything that you have to do, but this does give you a really good overview of the worker protection standard. How do you know if the worker protection standard applies to you? Basically, if you are producing an agricultural crop on a farm, forest, nursery, or what they now call enclosed space, which can be a greenhouse or other type of enclosed space, hothouse or whatever. If you're producing an agricultural crop in any of those situations and you apply a pesticide that has worker protection language on the label, you are in the worker protection standard. Now, just how much of it applies to you is part of what we're going to look at here. If it's only you and immediate family, a lot of it may be optional, but we will explore that. And this slide shows what the little blurb on the worker protection standard looks like on the label, and you will always find that right at the beginning of the agricultural use requirements. So, usually on the second or third page of the label. There are many things that the worker protection standard does not apply to around the farmstead, etc. So if it doesn't apply to pasture or rangeland, it doesn't have anything to do with things going on around the barn or you're treating turf. And this is an important part, and we're going to talk about it again a little later. Once a plant is harvested, it does not apply to the harvested portions of that plant. Who is the worker protection standard really aimed at protecting? Well, it's aimed at protecting workers, and it's aimed at protecting handlers. Workers is going to be anybody that's employed by the facility to go into a crop that's had a pesticide applied within 30 days that's going to do some kind of hand labor task, such as weeding, harvesting, or watering. Handlers are basically people that mix, load, and apply pesticides. Who is responsible for compliance? This is where WPS is different from most everything else we do in pesticides regarding the certified applicator. It is not the certified applicator that is responsible for compliance with WPS. It's the agricultural employer. So the facility, the boss, it's not the certified applicator. Who or what is a worker? Well, again, that's going to be anyone employed by that facility that's going to go back into a pesticide treated area that's had an application within the last 30 days, and they're going to go back in there to do some kind of hand labor task. And this is just a listing of examples of hand labor tasks. So if you're going to go back in there and water plants, you're going to do some kind of thinning, you're going to prune plants, anything like that would be considered a worker-related task. If you're going to relate this to agriculture, something that would fall into this category would be detasseling. So if you're in there detasseling a crop and it's had a pesticide within the last 30 days, you're going to be considered a worker under the WPS. Who is a handler? Well, anyone that mixes, loads, applies pesticides, and then we're throwing in a little more, and that is someone that works on pesticide application equipment. So if there are pesticide residues on that pesticide application equipment, and you're going to work on it, you are considered a pesticide handler. Handlers can also be crop advisors. If you go back into an enclosed space before the restricted entry interval is up, you're going to be considered a handler, or likewise entering an area that's where you've had a soil fumigant before that ventilation and aeration criteria has been satisfied. A couple of questions to see if you were paying attention. Does the WPS apply to workers if you have a farm stand? So you've got vegetables out there that you've harvested, picked, and you've got them for sale. And of course the answer is no, it does not apply to them, because once a crop is harvested, WPS no longer applies to that crop. Does WPS apply to employees who transport pesticides? If all they're doing is transporting unopened containers, again, the answer is no. If they're handling an open container in any way, shape, or form, then technically, yes, they are considered pesticide handlers. And again, who is responsible for compliance with the worker protection standard? It is the agricultural employer, not the certified applicator. If the only people that are employed at the facility are either owners and members of the immediate family, and this is a partial list of what is considered immediate family, then the slide says you're exempt from some portions. I'm going to tell you you're exempt from most portions of the worker protection standard. Interestingly enough, in-laws were not exempt in the original part of WPS, but since they have updated it, in-laws are now exempt if they're immediate family. And this talks about which portions you would be exempt from, and again, it's almost everything. It's pesticide safety training, notice about applications, posting and safety data sheets, emergency assistance. We will note what you're not exempt from is minimum age requirements, which is that a applicator must be at least 18 years of age, and any applicator is still required to follow all label requirements. So one of the other things you wouldn't be exempt from then is wearing the personal protective equipment required on the label. And in the case of respirators, if they are required, then you're going to have to do fit testing and medical evaluation. Some of these things we're going to talk about a little bit later. So if we're talking about a facility that employs regular workers that are not exempt, then all of the portions of WPS would be in force. And again, to just simplify things a little bit, that's going to be pesticide safety training for both workers and handlers. You're going to provide them with notice about applications. You're going to have respirator fit testing if there is a respirator requirement on the label. You will provide both workers and handlers with decontamination supplies, and you would provide them with emergency assistance if you believe they have been poisoned by a pesticide. So the safety training for both workers and handlers, workers must be trained before entering a treated area, and handlers need to be trained before they do any handling tasks. So basically, before they work with pesticides, they're going to have to receive training. That training has to be done yearly, and the employer, again, the employer, not the certified applicator, must keep a record of that training for 2 years. What kind of training do you have to provide and where do you get it? Well, that's all spelled out, and you can craft your own, but what I'm going to highly recommend is you go to that Pesticide Education Resources Collaborative website, and there are already videos there that you can have your employees watch that are approved by US EPA and will fit the bill for what you need to show them to be considered trained under the WPS. Who can conduct training? If you're a certified applicator, certified pesticide applicator, or if you've gone to a Train the Trainer program or course, and some of those are offered online, and or if you're a designated trainer, and that usually means an extension educator, can provide that training. I will also tell you in Indiana there is an organization called Proteus, which if you go to the state chemist office website and go to the pesticide section and look for a link to worker protection standard, you will find a link to Proteus there. They will do, in many cases, worker training for free. I don't think they do handler training very often, but they will do worker training, and again, they do it for free. What does the training involve? Well, again, I highly recommend you just use those EPA-approved videos that are already produced. The trainer must be present during the entire time so that they can answer any questions if they do come up. It says no distractions, so in other words, you can't sit them out by the highway and have them try and get trained, and they're competing with all the road noise going past. And note that they're was new content added in 2018. So if you have an old video prior to that, you really need to update that video to one of the newer ones. Safety, application, and hazard info. Well, this just is a way for you to transmit information about what has been applied to areas of your facility to your employees that might go back into those treated areas. So if you haven't made an application within the last 30 days and you have employees there, you wouldn't need to post anything about the applications. But if there has been an application within the last 30 days, you basically need to find a central area somewhere where there's a bulletin board, and you're going to have information up there about the application, including you're going to have like a ring binder that would contain the safety data sheet for any pesticide that has, technically it's been applied within the last 30 days, but the easy thing to do is probably just have an SDS there for anything you might apply during the year. You would also have to have a pesticide safety poster. Those may be available from the PERC website or from a company like Gempler's. That safety poster would also need to be on that central information area. This is just an example of what an pesticide safety poster looks like. And note that there is space at the bottom to write in emergency contact information for the closest local health facility should some kind of a medical emergency arise, and how to contact the state lead agency, which in Indiana, of course, is going to be the Office of the Indiana State Chemist. Also, we talked about records of applications at that central information site. This is the information that's required to be on those records: the location and description of the treated area, the product name, EPA registration number, and active ingredients. Product name's not going to throw many people, but some people get confused about where would I find that EPA registration number and the active ingredients, and that's usually going to be right on the front panel of the label. The restricted entry interval is going to be in that agricultural use requirements box that we showed you earlier in this PowerPoint. Description of the treated area, well, it was, the brown field, or field 23, or it was greenhouse number 4. Whatever you use to designate areas on your farm or facility. The time and date of the application is not new, but you will note that now you are required to put both a start and end time for the application, and you keep these records somewhere for 2 years. In certain instances, and again, to keep your employees informed about what areas at your facility have been treated, you may have to do both oral and posted warnings, depending on the type of product that you're using. And this is a general rule. So if it's danger poison products, those are going to require both an oral and posted warning sign if it's a danger poison product, or if the restricted entry interval is greater than 4 hours for enclosed spaces, and again, think greenhouses, hothouses, etc., or if the REI is greater than 48 hours for outdoor production, those will both require oral, and warning signs. If your product requires the use of a respirator, there are additional hoops you have to jump through. In that, your employee is required to get a medical evaluation. That is simply to make sure that wearing a respirator wouldn't cause them harm. They would be required to have respirator training on how you put these, use them correctly, how you maintain them, clean them off. They would have to be fit tested to make sure that the respirator that they've selected actually does its job and fits their face and keeps whatever they're applying from leaking in around the respirator. And you're going to keep records of the medical evaluation, training, and fit testing for 2 years. The next couple are kind of, I think we do this anyway, I call them brain dead things. Decontamination supplies basically just means workers and handlers are going to have access to water, soap, and paper towels to clean themselves off in the case of exposure to a pesticide, or if they're working in a pesticide treated area and they're going to take lunch. Of course, we want them to wash their hands with soap and water and dry off. In the case of handlers, you throw in a change of clothes, and that is in case they spill concentrate on them. They would be able to get out of those clothes immediately and into something else that's not contaminated by that pesticide. Emergency assistance just means if someone comes to you that works for you and you suspect they've been harmed or poisoned by a pesticide, you are going to provide them prompt assistance to the nearest medical facility. In addition, you need to be ready, and that's one of the reasons we have this area where we're posting records. That medical facility is going to want to know what they have been exposed to. So you're going to want to be able to provide them with the product name, EPA registration number, and the circumstances in which that exposure occurred. Know that, and I know this can all get overwhelming at first, know that there is assistance out there. If you have questions, you can either call me. My name's Joe Bakovitz, and I'm with the Office of the Indiana State Chemist. So I am one of those regulator people. If you're not comfortable calling our office, you can also call Fred Whitford, who is with Extension. And please, I would much rather spend a little bit of time with you answering a question you had on the phone than have you assume you knew the answer and having it cause a problem for both of us. So please feel free to call or use these resources like the Pesticide Education Resources Collaborative that do make things a little bit easier to comply with WPS. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a good rest of the day.
Okay, so that wraps up the regulatory part. Does anyone have any questions over what you just heard? If you think of something while Fred's still here, definitely ask him. He can kind of sum that up. So I think now we're ready. We're going to send the sign-up sheets down the rows here. So what you have is 2 sign-up sheets there. There's a pink one that is for private applicator. So if you are here for PARP credits, you got to get your name on the pink one. Underneath the pink one is the white sheet, and that is for all your commercial CCHs. Okay, so make sure you get, if you have both, you got to get on both. The pink sheet, let me borrow this for just a second. The pink sheet, you're going to fill all the way across. If you don't know your license number, the last 4 of your SOCH will work. If you want to look up your license number, I've got my computer and we can do that. So pink, go all the way across. And on the white sheet, it's actually 2 columns. So you just need to fill out the 3 rows here, and then you can jump to the other side for the next person. Make sure you write legibly on there. If you can't, yes, if you can't print your name where it is readable by your next door neighbor here sitting with you, raise your hand and we'll come around and write it for you. I don't mean to be insulting with that. Please don't take that as an insult. But we want you to get credits. If they can't read your handwriting, you don't get credits. If you don't get your name on one of these sheets today, you don't get credits. You can't call Ty or I next week and say, hey, I forgot to get on the sheet. Can you put me on there? So make sure it gets there. So any questions on filling that out? Anything? All righty.